Hello, good evening and welcome to the Hot Seat. In the Hot Seat today we have a person who spent an entire lifetime in the legal minefield, and joining us in the Hot Seat today is former Chief Justice Sarath N. Silva. Good evening and welcome to the Hot Seat, Mr. Silva.
Good evening for us, and thank you for inviting me.
I'm glad you've agreed to be in this Hot Seat. Mr. Silva, let's start at the beginning. Are you satisfied with the outcome of the 19th Amendment?
Well, for us it's a mixed reaction. The 19th Amendment is something that we look forward to. The seminal idea of this constitutional reform goes way back. I have been involved in that from the very early times, during the period of Mrs. Chandrika Kumaratunga. I was given the post of Attorney General, particularly to guide the constitutional reform process through. And we had a parliamentary select committee which had 70 sittings, and we had a whole constitution ready. But that was abandoned. So thereafter, this process of drafting a new constitution dropped off, and gradually we became involved in piecemeal amendments.
Right.
The 17th Amendment, at that time I was Chief Justice, and came up before me. We were actively involved in that. That was a great step forward. Then there was a reversal with the 18th Amendment. And after that, of course, is recent history, all are aware of it. And this whole process of constitutional reform became the focal subject. And I got involved with Venerable Ratanathira. There is a movement called the Pivituru Hetak, a group of academics and professionals and so on. And we prepared the draft of what should be the 19th Amendment. Basically, the outline remains the same.
Right.
But there have been so many adjustments
Right.
that have been made in the process.
Right. Was it ever the intention then in the draft to actually abolish the executive presidency?
No, that was not the intention.
Right.
If we go to abolish, we had to have a referendum.
Right.
So all along what we are trying to do for us is to avoid a referendum.
Right.
Because referendum means another 800 million rupees.
Right.
So what we try to do is to limit. We know the obnoxious features of the executive presidency.
Right.
To take away those features and get a kind of a president-prime minister joint government where there are checks and balances.
Right.
That's of course constitutional jargon.
Yeah.
In the J.R. Jayawardena Constitution of 78, there are no checks on the president's power.
Okay.
That everybody knows. President has unlimited power to appoint as many ministers as he pleases, to assume any number of ministries as he pleases, dissolve parliament at any time 1 year after election. So there is a huge area where the president's power is not subject to any check.
Right.
So our intention for us was to bring about these checks as far as possible.
And so now the main achievements appear to be that the president's term limit has been reimposed to 2 terms.
That's right.
And another one is where the president's power to dissolve parliament has now been taken away, only excepting as long as the parliament's been in life for 4.5 years.
That's right.
So it's only the last 6 months. And the appointment of these various commissions. I think the so-called independence of these commissions has been re-established now. So in a way it's gone back to the 17th Amendment.
That's right.
Is that enough?
That's a good question for us. No, you have missed out on one.
Okay.
That's whole of Chapter 7 of the Constitution, which deals with the Cabinet of Ministers, has been repealed.
Oh, I see.
And a new chapter virtually reintroduced.
Which is now the limit has been made into 25.
30. 30 and 40.
You know, Mr. Silva, perhaps I'm not informed of these things. It's because as a member of the public, apart from being a member of this thing called the media, we don't know what has been passed, because I've tried many times. I have deputy ministers who tell me, if you get the copy of the new 19th Amendment, let me have it. Why is there such secrecy, apparent secrecy?
Secrecy, yes.
Or is it secrecy?
Not secrecy. It's really no precise process has taken place.
Right.
And this is what happened for us. If I can take your time
yes,
and
please,
explain this,
please.
I think it's necessary. Now, when the 19th Amendment was formulated by Venerable Ratana Pivituru Hetak, we had this joint. That's a president and the prime minister exercise this power jointly.
Right.
With regard to the ministries, the appointment of ministers, and so on.
Right.
Now, when the 19th Amendment was drafted by this committee of Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, the prime minister, that moved to another direction. The president was made virtually like a rubber stamp.
Right.
And the prime minister decided on the number of ministries, subjects and functions, subject to the limitation, of course, of 30 and 40. And the persons to be appointed.
Right.
So on his advice, the prime minister, the president appointed.
Right.
So he had both powers,
right,
deciding on the subjects and functions, and advising on who should be appointed.
Right.
Now, it is these amendments that went to the Supreme Court.
Right.
The Supreme Court struck down very, very strangely. This is the problem. This is where this problem has arisen. The Supreme Court struck down the power with regard to the determination of subjects and functions.
Right.
He said that is executive power of the president. It can't be taken away. It can't be delegated to the prime minister.
Right.
But with regard to appointments,
right,
it is still on the advice of the prime minister.
Right.
Supreme Court left that aside.
Right.
Now we have got a very peculiar situation.
Right.
Now, if the prime minister, if they are going to continue with the prime minister determining the subjects and functions, it requires a referendum.
Right.
So the parliament was left with this option. They didn't want a referendum. And that's what happened. So I don't know what happened there.
Right.
So when the Supreme Court said these provisions require referendum and did not suggest any amendments, then the parliament has an option of dropping them all together. That will be the huge vacuum. Or substituting a provision in keeping with the guidelines of the Supreme Court. So I think what they have done is that as regards subjects and functions, they have gone back to the 1978 constitutional formula. The president may, in consultation with the prime minister, if he considers such consultation necessary, determine the subjects and functions.
Yes. So the operative word is may then.
May with regard to subjects and functions. Then with regard to appointment, the president shall appoint on the advice of the prime minister.
But if the Prime Minister says, I want ABC, I think you should appoint ABC, can the President say, oh, well, not really, I want to do DEF?
That's a very good question for us.
That's
a very good question for us, and that's the kind of situation that we will lead to.
Right.
If there is a conflict between the President and the Prime Minister, this amendment will become quite unworkable.
So that it will become, in commercial terms, businessmen and entrepreneurs are used to sort of where they have 50-50, so they come stuck there. The words fail me, but neither side can win, so you can't carry on with your business. So here we will have a political, the same thing, not commercially, but it will be a political stalemate. That's the word, I think.
Yes, the French Constitution, they had this problem during the time of François Mitterrand. He was a socialist president. And we had a liberal
Prime Minister.
But that got on very well. We had cohabitation for a very brief period with Chandrika Kumartunga and Ranil Wickremesinghe after the 2001 election. And that was a similar situation. Well, I was directly involved. I was Chief Justice then. I think I can now say that. Soon after the 2001 election result was declared, I got a message
Yeah.
from Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Yeah.
He sent a message. Now, can you please ascertain from the President
Yeah.
whether then his nominees will be appointed as ministers. He has already been appointed as Prime Minister.
Yeah.
So I was given this task. I said it's all right. We should break this deadlock somewhere.
Yeah.
I went to the President's office.
Yeah.
Now this happened. Now you can see the reality of political power.
Yeah.
Normally when you go to the President's office, you get a long queue of people. That day it was all deserted.
Right.
Because she had lost the parliament election.
Yeah.
I remember seeing only Mr. Lakshman Khadre come inside. He also said, Sarat, now you are here, I am leaving.
Right.
So Chansika asked me now, what have you come?
Yeah.
I hope you have not come with your old idea of a national government. I don't want national governments.
Right.
So I said, no, I have got only this message.
Yeah.
I am doing this purely to break a deadlock.
Yes,
now
that's
the word
deadlock.
that
Yes,
is,
yeah.
deadlock. So she thought, she said, all right.
Yeah.
But Ministry of Defence, Ministry of Finance, I should be informed who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they should not be politicians who are politically partisan people.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I will convey this.
Mm-hmm.
So I got back home and immediately the intermediary came.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him, how do you know that I had returned? He said, no sir, don't worry, we followed your vehicle. So they were not, we followed your vehicle. That I couldn't have bluffed. I couldn't have gone somewhere else.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, followed my... So I said, this is the message. So as a result of which for us is very ironic.
Yeah.
Mr. Choksi was appointed Minister of Finance. And Mr. Marapane was appointed Minister of Defence.
Right.
I think that's... and I know one particular minister, I don't want to mention his name. Chandrika gave the letter of appointment looking the other direction.
Oh, I see. Right.
So that kind of deadlock
can happen.
And thereafter she couldn't attend meetings of the cabinet. There were problems. Her handbag was searched, and finally, 2004, she dissolved Parliament.
Right. So it was a very unhappy marriage.
Very unhappy. Very unhappy.
Two rather unwilling partners.
Yeah. But now this can't happen because now the President doesn't have the power of dissolution.
Right, but in your understanding of the past version of this 19th Amendment, the Prime Minister will nominate who the ministers will be.
That's right.
And the President will have no other choice but to accept.
Yeah, this word advice is used.
Yes.
Now, in the Westminster system, that's the British system, advice means you are bound by advice.
Right.
Whether in our system it will be the same connotation is something that has to be considered.
The Queen of England
acts on advice.
Acts on advice. So in this respect, the Prime Minister is the Queen.
And Prime Minister is no, Prime Minister is not the Queen. The President will be the Queen. And the Prime Minister will be Prime Minister. So now the Prime Minister's advice will go. Now I cited the situation where they require an intermediary.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, I was Chief Justice and I was quite all right with both.
Yeah.
And probably trusted by both.
Right.
So I don't think in the future that there will be such kind of rapport.
Yeah.
But some links will have to be developed.
Mm-hmm.
Some links will have to be developed where this advice has to get some. I think finally it has to come to a situation where the President and the Prime Minister have to sit down. So these are areas where some kind of conventions can develop. So
that it may not be an altogether a bad idea to legally force them into a discussion.
Well, that's so for us. I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing to bring about some kind of compromise. Now you cited an instance. Prime Minister will say A, B or C.
Yeah.
President will say D.
Yeah.
Why not get E?
Right, yes. Yeah.
So that kind of compromise.
Right.
But the process gets delayed.
Mm-hmm.
Gets delayed, and probably the best man may not be appointed. That's
the other.
Yeah, because the Prime Minister must have a person whom he trusts.
Yeah.
And the President will appoint a person in whom he has confidence. So the country will be lucky if they converge.
Yeah.
But if they don't converge, then there will be a mismatch.
Do you think the people of Sri Lanka are a fortunate lot or an unfortunate lot?
Well, we have gone through, now I started my career in 1968, we had
Yes.
a 1971 insurrection, 1988 there was some southern violence, 30 years of war.
Yeah.
So we are basically fairly unfortunate.
Yeah.
But we have fortunate weather, climate,
Minerals.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Religious
Yes.
background.
Yeah.
So we are fortunate in some respects.
In a wider understanding, instead of only looking at our political and legal blinkers on, do you think that this 19th Amendment, and especially this issue where the Prime Minister advises, so many names, ABCs and so on, that this is the wider way of looking at it, this is this very Buddhist path of treading the moderate path, the path of moderation.
The middle path.
The middle path.
Yeah,
Yes.
middle path. I think that's what we have to. There are other problems also in the 19th Amendment. Now, 19th Amendment has provisions that are peculiar, the transitional provisions.
Right.
Where it says the present president
Yes.
will be the Minister of Defence.
Right.
He'll charge environment
Right.
and Mahavali development.
Okay.
So that is individual to him.
Right.
But he is otherwise not a member of the cabinet.
Oh, okay.
He is not a member of the cabinet. And that's with regard to the present president.
Right.
So there are these three fixed ministries that
So-
are now identified.
So that's very serious. He's even actually been excluded from the cabinet.
Yeah. And there is a provision which says that he can summon the cabinet if it is necessary to discuss
These
those
three
subjects. So there is
Isn't that an anomaly?
that is an anomaly. That's a very serious anomaly for us.
Has it sort of gone over the tops of their heads because they were so...
No, I think they got
Sidetracked?
Sidetracked in so many other issues.
Right.
So many other issues that they have lost touch of this. So if I may sum it up,
Yeah.
19th Amendment as it is now
Yeah.
is a bundle of compromises.
Right.
Now we have to see the fine print
Right.
and see how these compromises have been finally translated into print. And then see to pick up where we can adjust this.
But so my understanding then is that this 19th Amendment is actually not, even though it is passed, it's not passed, because they're still looking at the fine print.
Yes, that's right.
But nevertheless, notwithstanding that, they've already celebrated the passing of the 19th Amendment.
Yes, of course.
So,
Now, even with regard to the Constitutional Council,
yeah,
now the original thing has been sidetracked.
yes,
Now there will be majority parliamentarians.
yeah.
And
And is that 7? I think it's 7, right?
7-3,
7-3. So does the 7 include the Speaker and the Prime Minister?
I assume so.
Right.
Because no one knows.
We don't know. Again, we don't know. The people, the Republic doesn't know these things.
So the three persons, whoever who's brought in there,
Yeah.
will be a really lost voice.
Right.
So it will be mainly a political body.
Yeah.
So we have moved from one end,
Yeah.
where the president decides everything,
Yeah.
to another end where the parliament decides.
Right.
Parliament decides,
Yeah.
or the majority in parliament decides.
Right.
But either way, for us,
Yeah.
the process is fairly politicized. That's
Yes.
that's the danger.
That's the danger.
That's the danger.
And so this sort of uncertainty still hangs on.
Still hangs on. Still hangs on, and that's a very sad thing.
Yeah. It's a good thing that the people of Sri Lanka don't take these things too much to heart, because otherwise they'll all have high levels of stress.
Of course.
Cause,
Of course. Now people of Sri Lanka don't take the 18th Amendment just sail through.
yeah,
And in another country there would have been a huge protest
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
We protested.
Yeah.
We protested to the last
yeah,
with regard to the third term and so on.
Yeah.
But those are things that were just allowed to pass.
yeah.
And we see the repercussions of these things.
Yes, and again, this passed because the judiciary didn't play their role in this. The Supreme Court just allowed it to go through at the time.
Yes, I think that was a very sad thing.
Yeah.
That was a very sad thing because the Supreme Court, particularly in the 18th Amendment,
Yeah,
Not only the 18th Amendment, even with regard to matters concerning Sarath Fonseca's arrest and detention and so on, the Supreme Court really let down on their sacred function.
Yeah.
The way Sarath Fonseca was arrested, that was very bad.
Yeah.
That was indeed bad. Now the Supreme Court has, shall we say, got a more...
Do you think they're back on the railings and on the right track?
Well, they have brought about this compromise.
Right.
I was going through the judgment and the thing. They have brought about a compromise.
Right.
Whether the compromise is something that is workable...
Is something else.
Is something else. I don't think they have looked into the workability of it.
Right.
Because one person deciding on the subjects and functions, and the other person deciding on who is going to discharge the subjects and functions, seems to me a little illogical.
Right.
But maybe it's workable.
In all this, when we stand and look at it from a distance, it appears to me that no matter what happens, Mr. Wickremesinghe will be the next Prime Minister too, apart from being the minority government leader now. Do you think that's what is being planned for Sri Lanka?
I don't know what really is... No, I think Mr. Wickremesinghe had another model in mind.
Okay.
No, this is not his choice.
No.
This is not his choice. This is way removed from his choice.
Right.
His choice was that one that went to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Where the Prime Minister, President becomes the virtual rubber stamp.
Right.
So compromise have been made. President, you keep the Ministry of Defence, you keep the Ministry of Environment, you keep the Ministry of Mahal Development. Now that is also illogical.
Yeah.
Now he is there until he holds office as President.
So this, as the operative word there was, this President.
This President, yes. Particularly.
So we are not entirely certain what will happen to the next President.
But President won't have this.
Right.
Won't have this.
Oh, the next President won't have it.
That's what I'm saying. This is bad legislation.
So the next President, under the present legislation, will not have any way of sitting in cabinet.
No way.
At least this person now has a small leeway.
Small leeway.
Right.
And we have another problem for us, because Supreme Court also said that there is a provision which says that the Prime Minister shall be the head of the cabinet.
Right.
Now Supreme Court has held that that requires a referendum.
Right.
So that means, I think that provision has been dropped.
Right.
I don't think anything has been brought in place, because you can't bring anything in place.
Right.
So we may have that provision may be blank. There will be no head of the cabinet.
Oh, you'll have to sit in a round table.
Yeah.
But the President won't be able to come there.
No. He will come only on those issues.
Right.
Then otherwise we have no provision with regard to head of cabinet. So we must see the fine print. Because Supreme Court has held that requires a referendum. I think that's a little harsh. But those are the compromises that have been brought in by the Supreme Court, brought a balance. And when you work out a balance within a matter of, now they had only 2 or 3 days to consider this whole thing. Now I have sat as a judge, Chief Justice. When you have limited period, you work under huge stress.
Yeah.
You work under huge stress, and they had just 1.5 days to. So they have cut and chopped and done something. Very good. But I don't know what they have brought in place. The head of cabinet is essential.
Yeah.
So Prime Minister will become like de facto head of the cabinet. Or round table.
Somebody described the 19th Amendment with all those cribbles and crossing out as a Kottu version, which was cut and chopped.
That's true, because the Kottu started with the Supreme Court. So they said some provisions require referendum.
Right.
Then the alternative is to either go through the referendum or drop it altogether.
Right.
But they didn't do that, so they brought about a compromise.
Okay.
So we have to see how the thing works out for us.
Yeah.
It is not the best piece of legislation that we would have envisaged in the situation. But we have to try and make it work.
Right. Do you think that we have enough, can we stop bribery and corruption with the present laws that we have?
Well, laws are fairly advanced for us, in the sense that we have had laws on bribery for a long time.
Right.
We had bribery commission for a very long time. And I know I was directly involved in the Attorney General's Department bribery prosecutions. When it came to up to 1977, bribery was kept under fair control. But of course, economic activity was also low key. Economic activity was fairly low key.
Yeah.
And it went on. And bribery was. Then with the open economy, I think bribery also opened out. I think that's what happened. And we had these huge projects, Mahavali project, the port projects, all these projects coming with procurement processes, which were too wide to be contained in the very stereotype processes that we had, our tender processes and so on. If you follow the FRs and the tender guidelines, probably no contract can be awarded. So then they resorted to this single source procurement. Urgent. Everything became urgent. Everything became urgent. Single source. You go to cabinet and get it approved. So we moved to another extreme altogether. And 1994, I think we had a good chance of bringing it back. We established this bribery commission. That was Professor G.L. Pierce's act. It was passed unanimously in Parliament, and we brought about the new offence of corruption, where it need not be specific. If you have brought about some benefit to the person, that is corruption. So it's a very wide offence. A lot can be brought in. But we had a bribery commission. I think for us this is where the problem started. The bribery commission has to comprise of 2 retired judges and another eminent person who was retired. Now we have 2 retired judges and a retired IGP. Now they are not the active sort. When you have, I have no problem about retired judges being there. I pointed this out to DAPs even then. He said, no, you must have balanced people. But they are past their peak. So they try to write in fairness from the very beginning of the process. Bribery requires a couple of hounds. So you require hound. This hound approach is necessary for to hunt bribery and corruption. You can't sit in an office and say, now bring me all the complaints. Now that's what is happening now. And the JAP will go, lot of complaints. So that can't work for us. You have to be on the ball in bribery.
Thank you very much for that explanation, and thank you for being in the hot seat. And we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.